My other really, really important job was that I ran a one-woman customer service department. It's a slight control freakery, but I actually think that control freakery sometimes gets a bit of a bad press. It's how you get things done the way you want them done, and certainly with customer service, it is how you find out what people think of your product and your brand. And I have a new business called the Perfume Society, and I have the customer service line on my desk, because those are the people I want to hear from. So the other thing that we did was Craig worked full-time. I had two jobs, basically. I continued to work as a journalist while we were building Green&Blacks because we were growing so fast that every penny we made was tied up in stock and there was nothing left to pay me. But I do often say to entrepreneurs, you know, it helps to have two of you very often. It stops the loneliness. It helps if you have complementary skills because you don't want to get into business with somebody who wants to do the same bits you do. But the other thing is that you're there to kind of buoy each other up when things get rough. But anyway, I had these two phones on my desk and I would literally be on the phone to the editor of You magazine and the other line would go and I'd have to go, hold on, Dee. Hello, Green&Blacks. And that went on for 9 years, basically, until we took investment from private equity. It's incredibly difficult. You know, I make it sound really easy. It's not. It's incredibly difficult to grow a business as fast as we did. We were looking at, very often, 100% a year growth, which all your friends are going to be incredibly impressed by, but is going to keep you awake at 2 o'clock in the morning because funding the stock for that kind of thing is really, really hard. And there's no question that managing cash flow was absolutely the single biggest challenge that faced our business. And that's where I was very lucky with Craig because he was really, really good at that kind of thing. And he literally updated the cash flow daily so that we knew where we stood. We weren't always very happy with where we stood, but we got through. And as we've already heard, we made a really strategic decision that we were going to outsource all the bits that we weren't good at. So we didn't make chocolate because that wasn't our forte. We were great at marketing, we were great at PR, we were great at, we weren't that great at sales, actually. I hate selling. We used a network of sales agents that were going up and down the country, and we kind of piggybacked on the back of them, but that way we could get a much bigger sales force than we could have afforded. But the one exception was when there was an appointment with an important supermarket buyer, I went along. Because they meet lots and lots of grey-suited salespeople, and I think they really enjoy meeting the person behind, you know, with the story behind that brand. And you get this fantastic brief window of opportunity to bring your brand alive for Tesco or Waitrose or Sainsbury's or whatever. But for me, it was completely terrifying. I mean, I don't scare easy, but I used to sit quaking in reception at Waitrose or wherever. And there was one occasion where, God, it still makes me come out in the cold sweat. I went to see the Tesco buyer, who was, without question, my most difficult buyer. First time I went to see him, he said, "Why should I stock your chocolate? I mean, it tastes horrible, doesn't it?" You know, it's... but this time I thought, okay, I know he's the chocolate buyer, but maybe he's never seen a cocoa pod. So I took a cocoa pod along and I had it in my handbag. Unfortunately, as I got it out of my handbag, the sellotape came open and the two halves kind of came apart. And somehow I watched in slow motion as this shrapnel of cocoa beans hit the Tesco buyer. And I think it was the only time I've ever... People often say to me, how come you don't eat, you know, endless amounts of chocolate? Well, let me tell you, that was the only time in my whole life I've ever sat in the car park after that appointment, the only time I've ever sat there and eaten a whole 100-gram bar of Green&Blacks at one sitting.